So, hello everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Tall.
I think we can start it. We are a little bit late to 3 minutes, but it's fine. Um, okay. Did you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, okay. Hello everybody. I hope you are you are doing well given this current environment. And today, first of all, let me introduce myself. I am Ork Gülek. Let me introduce our presenters, Nikolai Abramov, Hassan Tural, and Martin Kolev. Nikolai is a developer and the test at Automate the Planets. Hassan Tural is a test engineer, and also Martin is a CMO at Automate the Planets. Today we will our topic is open source test automation framework. The agenda, I will start 5 minutes, a little bit presentation and the background. Martin Kolev will present also the test automation framework, the customize and the extension. I will give also Nikolai Avramov will speak about the presentation of the key features. He will demonstrate the DevOps integration. Also, he will present the different level of support. And of course, he will present the competitive advantage of the framework as the sustainable open source test automation framework, also the professional support, the box integration with Azure Jira Qtest, and also the PDF, graphic, and chat testing capabilities. And we will have approximately 10 minutes to have, if you have some question, we'll answer it. And I trust we will be an exciting session for each of you. Okay, our service, we are a professional IT company who is in the consulting service in the cloud testing and DevOps. We are doing also some trainings program. Our partner, Oasis Software Technology, it offers blockchain solution and training programs. Automate the Planet is a consulting and training test automation company. And I'm working in Switzerland as an account manager for IT skills and in the consultant service area. With over 10 years of experience, I am an expert in exceeding customers' requirements and help organization to their digital transformation. Of course, if you have some question after the meeting, you can send me on my email, or you can call me what time you want. I am very open to discuss on it. Firstly, I just would like to introduce some characteristic of the test automation framework, because it's very important to understand this kind of framework. You can have some test reliability, and you can accelerate the test creation or API usability, accelerates also the test execution. We will have more highly extensible. It's also human readable, easy knowledge transfer, troubleshooting easiness, unified team conventions to introduce, for example, as a DevOps, seamlessly integration with existing tools and processes. And lastly, it will have more advanced scenario support. Of course, I'm not a technical person. I will give you the speak to Martin firstly, and after Nikolai.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I would like, before we are moving on in the more technical details, first to describe the overall idea behind the framework. So first, when we started to design the framework before 5 years almost, we wanted to build a framework. Initially, it wasn't open source. Actually, it's open source for, let's say, around 1 year. So we wanted to build it on top of the most stable technologies, to make sure that we don't depend on other technologies, that they can just be deprecated. So today we would have a look at the C# framework that Nikki will present later, but actually we have already the same solution for Java too. It will be official in 1 month. The framework is ready. We are preparing now the marketing side of the project. So overall, what we are offering together in our partnership, it's that we can, as we mentioned already, the framework is totally free. It's open source. You can have all the time the latest version for free. So we can, in addition to that, we can help with supporting with the framework, and also consulting the company for, because it's not all about the software. Sometimes there are other problems in integrating and company processes that we can help. And the third part is that we can also create a private training if there is some missing knowledge, that for taking most out of the framework, we are offering that. So I will try to summarize what are the most important group of features in the framework. The first thing is that it's cross-platform. We wanted to make a framework that you can test desktop, mobile, API, Android, and you. The overall idea was that you should be able to do this almost identically with it. And the framework is designed in such a way that if you know how to test web, you almost know how to test everything else with the same framework. I think this is super important, because instead of having 4 different tools or frameworks for every different web application or mobile application, you have one framework that it's doing this. We are constantly maintaining the framework. We take care for the all updates of the browsers, etc. So the second really important thing that it's really huge part of the framework, it's that it's built with the idea of being extendable. This is something super important because half of our features are built on top of that, and it doesn't matter what our clients they will need one day, they will be able to extend that framework to the point that they need. This is actually half of from my perspective, this is half of the work of the framework, and that's why you need a framework, not just different bunch of tools. Yes, so this is overall what I think it's the big picture, the group of the features. So we can, I guess, move on and see more details about the framework. So
Okay.
yes, maybe we can move on with the next slide. Should we start with the presentation? With the demonstration?
Yeah, I can share my screen and give you just a quick overview over the main features and how they're implemented in our C# version. So as Martin mentioned, the interface and the way the framework is used is pretty much the same, even for Java and for for example, if you want to test Android or iOS applications. So this is a key feature here, really, that the learning curve is really slow, is really downwards, and you can easily get inside of this framework and start writing tests quickly. That doesn't mean that the framework is simple. There are so many features and so much code behind it, but the complexity is hidden inside it, so that when we write tests, we don't see any of this, and basically write our scripts in an easy manner that anyone can understand and can start using within a few hours. First, as we mentioned, this is the .NET framework. So I'm using Visual Studio to show you the structure of the solution. A few steps back, I would like to show you how easy it is to get started with it. Basically, what I did here is just to go to the Bellatrix repo on GitHub, navigate to it, download the code, and basically open the solution in my Visual Studio right here. So this is the whole solution of the test framework. You have everything you need for your web API, desktop, mobile tests right here, together with starter kits and tutorials on how to use the framework. One thing that I always use I always show in this solution are the framework tests. These tests are key differentiator for me because this is one of the few frameworks that has so many tests on every single technology. And using these tests, we are testing the test framework itself, and this gives us confidence to move on with a quick pace and make sure that this is any changes we make are not affecting the users of the framework from working. So no breaking changes or any regression issues here. We're running those tests. I think there were around, for the controls, we have more than 3,000 tests just to verify that every single function is working properly, and we don't have, we will not cause any issues on the user side. So the structure of the solution is fairly simple. You don't have to take care of those tests. They can be useful in some cases to see what we can do, but basically the source folder is showing the main projects that are inside of the Bellatrix framework with some plugins and different operations that can be performed with it. So this is like the insights of the framework. Of course, it's open source. Anyone can contribute to it. But the idea is that the framework stays sealed basically for modifications, but you can extend it in unlimited levels. This is basically what we do for our clients. They get the framework and they have the core functionality built in. But when they need something specific, they need something tailor-made, we're extending it without touching the framework. And this is one of the key benefits of having a framework as opposed to writing just Selenium tests on your projects, because every time you want new functionality, something new, something that our testing needs, we have to do huge replaces and work with the risk that we can break all other tests that have been running for some time. So this enables us to extend the framework without touching that much the core functionalities, and each client can have his own customizations that are built exactly for their needs. Okay, so I think we mentioned some of the key features here, but let's go through some of the getting started projects where you can see how is described again the main functionalities that we offer into the framework. You see that the structure is built in a tutorial way. So if you want to get started and learn deeply how to use the framework, you can go through every single of these steps, and basically with the README and the guides that we have, this will give you a really quick start how to really understand and how to use every single functionality of the framework. So let's start with a few key components here. I will not go through every single step, but maybe we should see how we use basically the functionalities in their basic scenarios. First, maybe we should start with that. We support NUnit, MS Test. Everything's controlled through some attributes, so it can be used vice versa, and you can have different test running technologies depending on your tooling stack in your company. So the first thing we do, we mark one class as a test class, and then we have this browser attribute. What this browser attribute is doing is that it makes sure that we can run the test against the browser type that we want, and we can define the lifecycle type of our tests. This is very interesting functionality where you can basically reuse the browser once it started for all of the tests in this class, or you can restart every time, like in this case. So each test will start a new browser. This gives you a clean state for each test. But sometimes when you have multiple small validations on each test, you might want to reuse the browser. So we can simply go and change that to reuse if started. And using these attributes, not only for these functionalities, we'll see that we have many of these. This saves you like modifications on the tests all the time when we want to change something in terms of running browsers against different browsers or different types. And this is also something that you can override on a central place. So for example, you can switch very easily on one place and run everything you have against Edge or Firefox or whatever browser you need. And the framework is driven by those attributes. This gives huge flexibility without changing the tests at all. So we have a few phases, as you might know. Before we execute the whole tests suite, we can go ahead and run some code. In this case, we're navigating to some page. To do that, we're using the app navigation service, which is used for any manipulations on the URLs or navigations for the browser. Those services are something that's like the main touch point with the framework. We have a bunch of them that are serving different purposes. This is done because we need to have separate services for their functionality. You know, in Selenium WebDriver, usually everything is packed into one library that most of the functionalities you can access through the driver. In order to confirm that we have this separation and isolation of the responsibilities, we're using those services where each service can give you only the methods that you need for that. So we have a service that controls the browser, one for computer vision verifications, one for manipulation with cookies, one for dialogues, for creating elements, interacting with some drag and drop, stuff like this. JavaScript service, everything is extracted so we can easily use only the methods that we need instead of having everything on the same place. This gives some usability to the framework, and it's really straightforward to start using it. So this is the main touch point here, where you just want to navigate, use the navigation service. Okay, so the next big thing in test automation is how do we interact with elements, right? Element locators are still used here, but we have built some helper methods and some extensibility on top of that. So we can, you have various ways of working with elements. This gives you everything you need inside of the framework. And using this element create service, you can see that we have really everything you might need in terms of locating elements, whether it's by ID or by link text or by CSS locators, expats, everything that's basically supported in test automation, you can do that. And even if there's something that you might need, like we had one example for example, for Angular, or you have some custom tag, you can easily extend that list and add the locators that you need into the framework so anyone can use it. So the basic element location, we're calling it basically create. Why is that create but not something else? Well, because once we do that method call, create by link text, we're not actually looking for that element. We're using that lazy load approach, where we're just building this metadata, and after you start working with this element, then the search gets executed. So at this point, we're not actually looking for the element, we're just defining how to find it, and then we can use it. That gives lots of flexibility for the tests, because you can define multiple elements without the need to be on that page even. So you can build many maps and then start using it. So only when you start using the element, this is when we start looking for elements and work with them. So this is just one example for finding an anchor inside the web page. By defining this generic type, the anchor, we can basically use only the methods available for an anchor. So we can click, we can find element inside of it. We can get some specific attributes like href, stuff like this. But the rest that would be available for all other elements is hidden. And this is also something that the framework offers, that the usage of different elements remains specific for the element type. So you don't have all these extra methods that you never use. The other thing that this gives you is that you can build different extensions on top of this anchor element. So if you need some specific validation, you can again extend it and start using it right away. The next big thing in writing tests is waiting, right? So this is like the key differentiator between different approaches about its like smart waits and how we basically wait for elements. In Selenium, this is done with the waiting service, which can be used as explicit or implicit approach, but we have built on top of that a functionality that we can actually say, okay, I want this anchor, but I want it to be clickable before I start using it. So instead of defining this in with some additional code, additional service, you can say, okay, wait to be clickable, like this. So at this point, when the code starts to work with that element, the framework will actually wait for the element to be clickable before it starts and trigger before it starts any other methods on top of it. And this can be easily built for the specific elements, and this would give you the reliability of the overall tests, because you can build on top of that different approaches to find and wait elements. And there's no need to write explicit waits for, let's say, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and whatsoever. So this is a really big thing. The other benefit of it is that, again, it's controlled by on a general place in the settings, where you can say basically, okay, I want for my test environment to wait for 30 seconds, for example, but on the production, I want it to be something smaller, and vice versa. So there's no need to modify the tests and change thread sleep timeouts. Everything is controlled on a single place, and the framework reads those and overrides whenever needed. Okay, so this is like the main way to look for elements and basically wait for them. The next big thing is, of course, the assertions. We have two types of assertions. One we call here the normal assertions, where you can just say, okay, assert it's true that this apply coupon button is present. This is like the straightforward way where we use the MS test or any unit assertions, and you can just assert some condition. But on top of that, we can also use the validate assertions that are built into the framework. And we can do things like, let me check here. Okay, so we have some element and we want to assert something about it. We have these extensions where we can validate different criteria. For example, validate. CSS class is inner text is inner HTML visible, some styling, title is, we have like these different types of validations that we can use. And what this gives us is that the assertion methods, when they fail, they will give us really meaningful explanation of what happens. Instead, if we use just the normal assert, when this throws exception, it will say this message: assert is true, has failed. That's it. And no one will know what happened actually. So this is why we came to the conclusion we need to build something on top of that and use all this metadata that we have in order to report to the tester or to the person looking at the results what exactly happened, where that happened, what were the conditions. We can take the screenshot, we can use video recording for it. So all this data is really useful for analyzing test results and then acting on it. This is very important for test framework, and this gives a lot to the overall reliability of the tests and for the maintenance of those tests. So it's not only about writing tests, writing tons of methods. It's about having reliable and easy to maintain tests. Okay, the next thing I want to cover are the page objects. This is something that we widely use in our tests, and we find it as the best approach to follow. Of course, anyone can use a more like simple approach, but page objects give us the maximum reusability of the elements, and basically most agile modifications, because everything is grouped inside a page. We're using partial classes just to separate the methods that we might have on a page with the elements, which are basically the maps, and the assertions that might be custom for that page. So with these three classes represent a single card page that have where we can apply some coupons, update product quantities, stuff like this. And this is something we can build for each page. In the elements, we have the element maps where we just say, okay, I have one coupon code text field, which can be found by ID, and so on and so on. So we have all our elements inside it. It's not mixed with the methods, and it's very easy to read. Respectively, in the assertions, we can have some generic assert on the page that is performing some additional actions. And those page objects are fairly easy to use. Once we have one page, for example, let me check one page. Okay. These are the elements. Okay, yeah. So we have one page. So we're just saying app.go to homepage. The page itself knows the URL of the page, so it knows how to navigate to it. So once we do that, we'll navigate to page and we get the instance of this page. After that, we can just do a filter, add products, view card button, click. That's it. So you can see how simple is this. And inside of those, we can have multiple element calls and weights and whatnot. So working with pages can be very beneficial for grouping all the functionalities and keeping your tests simple and easy to read. Okay, for some time I would just share a few more features that we have in the framework. One is the layout testing. The layout testing feature is accessed by the service that's responsible for layout changes. So you can just create one element and say, okay, I want to assert that this element is above of other element. So this would verify that the position of elements is the exact that we need. We can assert many CSS properties or something that's related to styling. And this is something very hard to verify using code usually, but the framework gives you that. And we are widely using those tests to verify general position of elements and that the layout of the page remains the same. So this is very easy to use feature that is fairly complex to do in a general way. The style testing, again, it's using a similar approach. We can just say assert font size is 14 pixels and it will do the job for you to go and use the appropriate methods. The troubleshooting methods for screenshots and video recording I mentioned. This is something you can usually do over the configurations, just to say that I want screenshots for all my tests. Everything is described here. You just switch this Boolean parameter to true and you can have your screenshots taken every time a test fails. The same goes to video recording, where you can have recorded tests, the whole execution over your local folder and look through these after the test execution instead of reading the debug stack flows. Capture HTTP traffic is used for proxying your tests. This is a very interesting functionality where you can say, okay, I want to capture the traffic and just keep the marketing calls that my browser is making, so I don't influence the marketing statistics. And you can do it for many different in many different ways, but basically you can verify that there are no error codes, for example, in the requests of the browser. So you're staying in the middle of the browser and the server, and you can do many verifications using this proxy service. Or yeah, for example, you can assert that no large image are requested, everything is optimized, and or some request is made with some URL. So this is very useful. It has some drawbacks in terms of slowing down, but this is because of the proxy. There are some cases where this can come in handy for some advanced scenarios, and all this is built in right into the framework. Okay, some words about the integrations. We mentioned that we have different integrations with Dev Azure, with Qtest, Jira, and so on. Here we have examples how to use the framework to execute tests using the Selenium grid that many companies used and might have set up in their network. So it's really easy to start running your tests against some remote address. Basically, you just apply the address of the Selenium grid, and those tests will start running there right away. We don't have to touch anything inside of the tests or the code. Everything is inside those configurations. And the same way you can configure your test to run in Source Labs, again with some configuration changes in browser stack, cross-browser testing, or Selenoid. So all of these are supported simply by changing some values in the configuration files. When we talk about integrations, we have a few more integrations about reporting and a test case creation. There is a feature that gives you the ability to create test cases in Qtest based on your automation tests. This is a very nice feature to have when you want to understand what coverage your tests are having, and basically what are your tests doing. In management, there's always this misunderstanding. They know we have something, but they don't know what exactly. So we have created this approach where you can say I have this attribute, dynamic test case, and you can supply the title of your test case. So once you do that, basically every single operation that is made in your test will be translated to a test step inside the test case management tool you use, and you would have exact steps with the exact data that you have. This is also something that is enabled to the framework without touching any of your code, unless you want something custom. But it's again a feature that you can enable for your tests and see the results right away. Okay. All right. Let's talk a bit about logging. The logging is really important for us, and we are always striving to have the best output of our tests, because we see how hard it is to have thousands of tests, and when you have to run them over and over again on your local machine just to see what happened. And this is why we have different ways of logging. We can have the console logging, debug, event logging. You can output the logs into a separate file, have it in the Windows event. We're using many different ways, and the framework is over like redirecting all these logs depending on your preferences. And this is helping a lot for maintaining the tests and reading through the failure reports. So on top of that, we have the so-called BDD logging, which is right here. So you can basically enable it, and you can have human readable. You can have human readable output of what happened during the test. So you can see that every single location of element, hovering over, clicking some control, all the data is output to the log. So you can understand how far the test went before it failed. And this is very useful for reproducing the test step to see what actually happened. And yeah, with every assertion, with every validation, we're striving to have the best possible logs. So this can ease the maintenance. Okay. How much time we have left? Do we have? Are we on schedule?
Yes, I think shortly we should move on the integration part, but
okay. All right.
Let's say
Okay.
we have 5 more minutes for some of the features. I know that there are a lot, so we are just going through the highlights.
Okay. All right, so I will show you just this extension of the existing elements. This is something very important for most companies where they have some custom controls, they have something specific that they want to use, and you cannot use the general approach that is available for everyone. So let's see an example of a button where we want to perform some action, where you can have an extension method on the button, the general button that we have, where we want to submit with enter. To do that, we just define an extension method. We have the element as input parameter, and we can call some custom action where we move the mouse over and send key enter to do it. And this will get applied for everyone that's writing tests, and they can start using it right away. Okay, in addition to this, we can do stuff like focusing JavaScript. With JavaScript, we can override some of the existing elements functions, like if we want to set text in a different way for some element, you can extend that and change the behavior without touching the framework itself. And this is something that we do often for our clients, to find a way to extend the framework so it can work in their case without having methods that don't work because of some custom approach. Of course, this is valid for all the services we have. We can extend their functionalities, or we can actually create a new service that can be used. For example, some custom authentication into your backend system. We can have such service, and when we say when we use this attribute, it will authenticate with its custom logic. Again, without touching the main framework controls and functionalities. So you can basically tailor it to your needs, no matter if we're talking about authentication, some custom workflow that you need, or some specific elements and controls that are available only in your solution. This is the power of it. You can extend it and you can build on top of it quite a lot. Here we have a few more examples of such extensions of new locators, element finding strategies, different kinds of weights that we might need. Everything is, I think, very well described into this project. So last thing here to cover is something that we added quite soon, I think 1 month ago, it's about reading different images. How is that done? Well, you can use the computer vision service to extract some text out of image or some PDF document. This is very challenging tasks, usually for test automation, to see the output of your code when you export this PDF and it's used by clients. So what we can do here is to use the Azure OCR services to read from this file, and then for each line to verify that some text is available. And yeah, this is again built into the framework. It's separated in another service. So whether you need it or not, you can have it and start using it right away. I think there was some configuration again in the config files, but many companies rely very heavily on this when we are talking about some invoices or some shipping documents, for example. They want to know that everything is correctly exported into those documents. So again, this is very interesting part of the framework. It's available right away.
Nikki,
And
can we use something like that also for charts? Because as far I know, they're also really hard for automation.
Yeah, usually charts are not hard, but impossible, basically, to automate using Selenium or something similar. We had a similar problem a few weeks ago when a team wanted to verify something like this. So we actually tried to use this OCR service to see what is the output of it. And we basically managed to take the data of the graph, not the line itself, but the both
the numbers, the data.
Yeah, the numbers, the data that are on the chart. You can have them and verify that the chart is actually displaying something instead of being crashed or not having anything inside. And usually when someone asks about this, I ask him what happens when this chart fails, basically when the service doesn't get any result. And this is usually the result is just having an empty graph or not having any numbers. So this validation is sufficient in these ways, in these scenarios. So yeah, it can be used in many different cases. We can see that we can validate PDFs and just simple images as well. So this is also something we can make use of right away. Okay. I don't see one of the features that is very key for me. I'll just share it for a few seconds. These are the grids and the tables. I'm not sure how many of you are dealing with this. Usually in the business applications, backend applications, grids and tables are widely used for different configurations. So the grid and tables in Beatrix are really well implemented in terms of different methods we can do on them. And in terms of validation, assertions, and working with those grids, I think the functionality here is unbeaten. And you can basically do whatever you want with those grids and make the testing of those grids really easy. In some of our big clients have many of those grids, and we have implemented a way to use it really simply, to find all the cells of the grid only by using the header names and work with every single cell depending on your use case, and either click or type data inside of it without writing custom locators and even without writing locators at all. So it's a very powerful feature for that. There's plenty of information on the website, I think, about it. So I would stop right here with that. Just wanted to mention it. Okay. All right. So what's the next thing we want to cover on the agenda?
We will now show the DevOps integration. I think one of the integrations, because we will not have time for more for sure. We can just explain that.
All right. So when we talk about integrations, again, everything, the whole configuration of the framework is inside those test framework settings JSON. Since the framework is basically text and it's development code, just like your .NET application would be, you can, of course, have it safely in your Git repository inside Azure DevOps. So it's very easy to have the code there. And when you want to integrate and start running the tests from Azure, you can simply do the simple command for .NET test and run the tests right away with the supported results output. You can actually get the results in any format you need, so that you can use it over Jenkins, or you can use it in Azure DevOps or whatever you're using for test execution. And the results themselves can be also redirected to Allure or some other like reporting solution that that you're already using or want to use. So it's fairly simple. I don't have this Dev Azure to show you that can be publicly shown how to run tests, but this is basically the same approach as you would run any other test unit or integration or any other. So the integration itself is very simple. Another interesting feature is about the bug reporting, and it's supporting basically bug reports inside Azure DevOps. So that what does this plugin is doing is basically it's taking the steps that I showed you in the behavior-driven development logging. Let me just open that. Yeah, so you can see these kind of steps as steps to reproduce inside Azure DevOps. And you can, on each file, you can have a new defect created in Azure DevOps, and you can set it as some specific category that you know it's from automation. And then you can see all the steps to reproduce here with the concrete data. You can see that it's not some general description. We have the concrete data that we should use in order to get into this state of the system. And this integration is again triggered through some categories and attributes. So there's no need to change anything inside the tests. I'm not sure in how many teams you can do that easily, because many you need a really stable test written in a good way so that you don't have too many bugs logged. But this is an option that you can use when your tests are mature and you know what you're doing. So you can create a really nice bug logging verification process on top of that. And yeah, it could be very useful. Okay. Yeah, so Marta, am I missing something here?
I don't know, maybe if we can say something more about the Azure integration, maybe we can just mention the parallel execution just for with one sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have
yes.
2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, that's great. All right, so in terms of parallel execution, we have different approaches. One of them is just to have separate jobs that run just the groups of tests and have parallel execution. That's fine. But basically what the framework supports and can be used for is basically to use this parallelizable attribute that's coming out of NUnit to basically say, okay, this class can be parallelized with the others. So when you run a whole category of tests, this can be executed on many threads. So each thread would execute all its tests inside the class, and that way save some time on execution. This is something that's not so straightforward in that complex solution like this framework, but we made sure that we support that because it's really useful for our clients to execute like quick and simple tests that we can reduce the execution from 5-6 hours into just one, and this is very beneficial. So the parallelization here can be implemented in many ways, but we're supporting all of them basically. And on Azure DevOps, you have many options to do that by defining this matrix of execution. Any configuration that works for the team is supported here and can be built. So on top of that, with the parallel execution, bugs logging basically, and reporting in Dev Azure, we're supporting everything it offers. And I believe it can be used in many other ways as well. In Jenkins, we have really good results as well. So the most popular CI tools are covered in 100%. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Nikolai. Did you finish?
Yes, I think I finished. There's quite a lot more to cover, but
yeah,
I think it's important to know where to start. And these guides would give anyone very good information on how to use the framework, and
yes, exactly.
also ourselves.
Yeah, it's a good presentation about the framework. And Martin, do you want to add something? You have some?
No, I think this was a technical overview of just an overview. We have
exactly.
also really huge documentation that everything is well documented, and if someone is interested, can search for something specific later or can ask directly. I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, if you have, thank you very much for everybody and the speakers, of course. If you have some question, you can write it on the chats, and of course you can write it. You can contact me on my email, on my mobile phone. Nobody. I don't know if. Yeah. Thank you very much for everybody and the speakers. And there is no question on the chats. And I say have a nice day and also take care and keep healthy.
Ciao.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you
everyone.
very much. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.